This story begins with a streak of blood on a lonely fence post and a dying woman's whisper, "Please, don't take me back." It's a tale of a solitary rancher who turned his back on the world, and the hunted stranger who forced him to face it once more. They faced the ruthless men who would kill to bury his secret, and the choice between a quiet life and a right one. What unfolds will grip you with its tension, restore your faith in quiet courage, and prove that even the most broken chains can be mended. Before we begin this journey together, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Blood doesn't belong on a fence post. Not out here, where the land is vast and silent, and a man can spend a lifetime forgetting the world that broke him. But that morning, Caleb Thorne saw it, a dark, drying streak against the wood, stopping him dead in the middle of his ride. He reined in his horse and stared. The world was still, save for the wind and the creak of his saddle. Caleb was a man carved by solitude, his routine simple, his company non-existent. Yet here he was, looking at a violation of his quiet peace. He slid from his horse, his boots hitting the dry earth. The blood trail led into the far field. He followed, rifle in hand, until he saw her, a young woman crumpled and half hidden in the grass. Her dress was torn, her face streaked with dirt. Each breath was a short, ragged pull. One hand clutched a bloody wound at her side. The other hand weakly dragged through the dirt, as if she was still trying to crawl to safety. Caleb approached slowly, the way one approaches a wounded animal. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing green eyes clouded with pain and a sharp, hunted instinct. He knelt. His shadow fell over her and she flinched. When she tried to speak, her first breath cracked. The second carried a whisper. "Please, don't take me back." The words struck a place in him he thought had turned to stone long ago. He had heard fear before, but this was different. This was a plea from a shattered soul. He scanned the distant hills. This kind of fear never traveled alone. It had riders behind it, men who would follow a blood trail to its end. He looked down at her trembling fingers, the dirt on her skin, the sheer will it must have taken to get this far. He knew nothing about her. He didn't need to. Some dangers you hear coming. Others arrive in the shape of a stranger, collapsed at your doorstep. Caleb Thorne carried the woman toward his cabin, her body frighteningly light in his arms. Her shallow breath whispered against his shirt, a fragile sound in the vast quiet. Inside, the air smelled of dust and solitude, a peace that was now shattered. He laid her on the cot by the window and set to work, cleaning her wound with water and a splash of whiskey. She never cried out, only clenched her jaw, a silence that spoke volumes about the hardness she had endured. When her eyes opened again, clearer now, they held a wary calculation. "Thank you," she whispered, her fingers clutching the blanket like a lifeline. Caleb gave a single nod. "You ran a long way. Someone's chasing you." The question hung in the air. She hesitated, then swallowed hard. "Yes. They won't stop. Not until they finish it." "Finish what?" His voice was calm, but left no room for evasion. She closed her eyes, gathering strength. "My name is Lena Carter. My family had a claim near Silver Mesa. We found a rich vein. A man named Cole Maddox wanted it." Her voice cracked. "He sent his men. They took everything. I only escaped because they thought I was dead. Now they want to make sure of it." Caleb absorbed her story, the pieces fitting together with a grim, familiar logic. Greed was a poison he knew well. Outside, the land was deceptively still, but the silence now felt like a held breath. Trouble was coming. He could feel it in his bones. "Do you think they found my trail?" Lena asked, her eyes sharp with fear. "If they want you bad enough, they'll follow the dust itself," he replied, his tone leaving no room for false comfort. He crossed the room, pulled back a worn rug, and revealed a hidden trapdoor. The hinges groaned in protest as he lifted it. "You'll be safe down there until I know what's coming." "You can't face them alone," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I've been alone a long time," he said, meeting her gaze. "Long enough to know what I can handle." After a moment's hesitation, she climbed down into the darkness. Caleb sealed her in and stood listening. The old cabin creaked its usual complaints, but then came another sound, the steady, distant drum of hoofbeats. He moved to the window. 4 riders crested the far ridge, their purpose clear in their rigid postures. They were hunters. They fanned out near his fence line, one dismounting to study the ground. Caleb's gut tightened. The tracker stood and pointed directly at the cabin. The destination had been found. Caleb stepped onto the porch, his rifle held ready. The lead rider called out, his voice cutting through the quiet. "We're hunting a thief. She came through here. We just have a few questions." "This land doesn't get visitors," Caleb answered, his voice flat. "You won't find what you're looking for." Tension thickened the air. The riders exchanged glances, their horses fidgeting. They moved closer, stopping just yards from his porch. The leader sat tall, hand resting near his pistol. "We'll search your barn. It'll only take a minute." Caleb gave a slow nod. A free land lets a man make his own choices. But think twice before stepping where you aren't welcome. The threat was understood. 2 riders moved toward the barn. The tracker remained, his eyes scanning the dirt. The leader stayed put, his gaze locked on Caleb. "Quiet life out here," he mused. "Strange you didn't notice someone passing through." "I notice what I need to," Caleb replied. Suddenly, the tracker raised his hand. He knelt, brushed the soil, and pointed straight at the cabin door. "Fresh tracks," he announced. "Small, light, not your boots. Someone was here this morning." The leader grinned, a cold, predatory sight. "Seems you have company, after all." Caleb didn't flinch. Inside, he pictured Lena holding her breath in the dark below. The lead rider swung down from his saddle and started toward the porch, his steps slow and deliberate, each one crushing the brittle grass. He stopped at the bottom of the steps and rested his hand on his pistol. Men who rest their hands like that, Caleb thought, rarely rest for long. The rider tilted his head. "We're going inside." Before Caleb could answer, a sharp crack echoed from within the cabin, a single, betraying floorboard. The rider's eyes narrowed. He had heard it. In that instant, the calm morning shattered, and Caleb knew the first shot was only a heartbeat away. The echo of the floorboard was still in the air when the lead rider went for his gun. Caleb was faster, not with a young man's speed, but with the swift, brutal efficiency of hard-won experience. His rifle roared once. The shot hit its mark, slamming the man backward into the dust, where he did not move again. The other men erupted into action. Gunfire shattered the morning's quiet, tearing splinters from the porch rail as Caleb ducked and returned fire. A muffled cry from inside the cabin told him Lena had heard it all. He willed her to stay hidden and low. 2 riders took cover behind the water trough, a third firing from the barn wall. Caleb counted their shots, measured their positions. He hadn't asked for this war, but he would not let it overrun him. While their focus was pinned on the porch, he slipped away, sprinting for the barn with burning lungs and a single desperate plan. Inside, amidst relics of an old life, he found what he needed. A single stick of mining explosive, its fuse still intact. He'd kept it for years, a danger he'd never thrown away. With a prayer on his lips and shaking hands, he lit the fuse and rolled it toward the water trough. The blast was a deafening roar of dirt, smoke, and shattered wood. When the dust cleared, one rider was still. Another was crawling away, wounded. The last man, stunned, threw down his gun, scrambled onto his horse, and fled for the hills. A heavy, ringing silence fell over the ranch. Caleb walked back to the cabin, his rifle warm in his hands. Lena stood in the doorway, pale and trembling. "Is it over?" she asked, her voice breaking. "For now," Caleb nodded. "But the truth still needs daylight. They will answer for Silver Mesa." As he pulled on his boots and reached for his hat, Lena's eyes filled with fresh worry. "Where are you going?" "To town. Someone has to speak for your family." "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking with fear. "Don't. If they know I'm alive, they'll come back for us both." Caleb held her gaze, the weight of his decision solid in his chest. "They are already coming. The only question is whether they come as shadows, or as men facing the law." He rode out, carrying the truth like a burden. Days later, county officials arrived. Lena told her story. This time, someone listened. In the quiet that followed, Caleb mended his fence under a healing sun, while Lena watched from the porch. The silence felt different now, not empty, but honest. After 12 years of hiding, a stranger at his fence had reminded him of a vital truth. A man cannot carry his past like a chain forever. Sometimes he has to break it. Sometimes the hardest road is the one that leads you back to yourself.